Hi guys, it's Miss Michaela. I hope you're all having a great week. I miss you so much.
Hello, 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 everybody. It's Miss Michaela, and welcome back to our YouTube channel. So, today we're going to be learning about Noah. And for those of you who may be a little bit behind from last week, we are doing a new series called Where's Jesus? And we're going to explore Old Testament stories and see where Jesus is in them because his name isn't actually mentioned in any of these stories, but he's everywhere in it anyways. So we're going to dive into the story of Noah today, and I will give you guys a quick recap on what Noah is about in case you haven't heard. It's a really cool story, and it's probably actually one of my favorite stories ever. Maybe on a future Wednesday night, whenever we get back together, we'll talk really in depth about it because there's a lot of cool stuff about that. But for now, we're still going to do videos, and before we start, I'm going to go ahead and pray that God will bless our time together. So bow your heads, close your eyes. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this beautiful day, Lord. Thank you that we were able to go back to church last week and just see a few faces, Lord. I haven't seen quite everybody yet, but I'm just so thankful that we're able to come back and meet with you, Lord, in your church. And I pray that you would bless all the kids, whether they come or whether they stay at home, wherever they're at, Lord. Just thank you so much for who they are and for their faith in you. And I pray that their faith would grow, especially after our series about where your son is in the Old Testament, Lord. And we just ask that you would bless our time together today and that we would all leave this video learning something new. We love you, Lord, and we praise you in your son's name, Jesus. Amen. Amen. Alrighty. So excited about this. I love this story. Noah is a very well-known Bible story. I'm sure lots of you guys have heard the story before many times already, but some people still haven't heard this story. There are lots of adults I know that haven't heard this story, or they don't even believe it happened, which is like, what? No, it happened. It's in the Bible, and we believe in the Bible. But it's such a crazy story that it's hard for people to believe that it happened. But kind of like, so let's start with last week. I made the what's it called, the family tree of the line of Jesus, all the way from Adam, who had children, who had children, who had children, who had children, all the way to Jesus. It was like this really long family tree, and one of the people on that family tree was Noah. So Noah came, I'll have to look it up and put it on the screen, but it was something like 600 years after Adam was on earth, or maybe longer than that. Everyone lived such a long time. Like when the earth began, people would live for hundreds of years. And just a fun fact, the oldest person ever recorded in history is Methuselah. And Methuselah, I believe he was also on that line, the family tree line. He lived, I'll put it on the screen, but I'm going to guess. I believe he was like 967 years old, something like that. Can you imagine living for 900 years? That's a lot of time to think and do stuff. So cool. Anyways, Noah, he lived a long time too. In this story we're reading today, he actually was about 600 years old, which that even just blows my mind. Like, I'm 26 and you guys are anywhere from like 5 to like 11 or 12, and 600. That's so crazy. I want to live to be 110. That's my goal. That's what I tell everybody, and they think I'm crazy, but 110 just sounds like a good number. But we'll see. We'll see what God has in store for my life. But Noah was a man who lived on earth a long time ago, and God at one point in history, at this point in history, had said that the whole world was absolutely wicked, full of people who were doing evil things. Nobody was good. And God was really sad that he even created man. And we'll read that in a little bit. But there was one man that he called righteous and good. And he was someone who was after God's heart. And that was Noah. Only person on earth who was able to get that status, and which is it's really cool. Like to be Noah at this time was a good thing, because what was coming was not good. So Noah was instructed by God to build a big ark. So what's an ark? An ark is like a really big boat, but really, really big. So maybe you guys have heard of the story Titanic. It's a big ship that sank in 1912. I do know that. In 1912 it sank, and it was this huge boat. It was the biggest boat at the time in the whole world. You know, like those big Disney princess what are they called? Cruise boats. They like go around. They're just giant. They're like cities that are floating on the ocean. Well, this ark was probably bigger than that. I can tell you exactly how big it is on the screen, because it's so big. It's such a big ark. So God told Noah to build this ark, and the reason was because he was planning to flood the whole earth. And he was going to flood the whole earth because there was nothing good in it. Everything was wicked, everything was evil. Now, Noah was found in favor with God, or we'll see that it says God found favor with Noah, and Noah was going to be saved along with his family members from this flood that was going to cover the whole earth. Not just like where they lived, the whole earth. Like the whole earth. I say that so many times, but it still is just hard to even understand. Like, we're in Napa, or maybe you're in Fairfield or American Canyon, wherever you are, you're somewhere near here. Imagine if it just rained and rained and rained and rained so much that there was rain like higher than the mountains here. And the mountains aren't even that tall here. Like Mount Everest, that's the tallest. There's lots of fun facts today. That Mount Everest was like the tallest mountain in the whole world. That was covered by water. And that's, I'm going to find another fun fact. The height of Mount Everest is, and I'll put it right here, and that's really tall. It's in the thousands and thousands and thousands of feet. It's like 7 miles long or something like that. Really tall. Anyways, it's a terrible, terrible thing that's going to happen to the whole earth. All the animals are going to die too, and all the trees and everything that's alive is going to die. But Noah was going to be saved by God because God had grace on Noah. And then we're going to see, what else? How far should I go with this? Anyways, I'll just put it out there that Noah was instructed by God to build an ark, to put his wife, his kids, and himself on a boat, and 2 of every single animal on earth. Just 2. 1 boy, 1 girl animal. And put them all in the ark. And that would save them from this flood, and then they would be able to float back down to earth once the waters went down and start the new world. That's kind of the gist of it. There's more details, but we'll go into those when we read the story. And we're going to be in Genesis chapters 6, 7, and 8. And I'll be doing a little skipping around, but we're going to read a good part of it. And we're going to see where Jesus is in all of this. He is not physically mentioned being there, like Jesus was like hanging out with Noah, having a good time or whatever. He wasn't actually physically there like the human Jesus, but we do see how Noah kind of is a symbol for Jesus. And like, what's kind of a symbol? So it's something that represents someone else or something else. And Noah is going to be showing some awesome characteristics and just ways that he is Jesus-like or Christ-like. That's what you hear a lot of adults say, that you want to be Christ-like, you want to be like Jesus. Noah, in a lot of ways, is being like Jesus in this story. And we're also just going to see, comparing this story with when Jesus died, was crucified, rose again, and is coming back. That's a story that we haven't experienced yet as far as Jesus coming back. We're going to see how Noah's story with the flood is similar to that story. So let's dive in and hold on, because it's going to be a bit of a hopping around ride. So we'll have fun. It's like Disneyland. It'll be fun. Okay, so the first thing we're going to be reading is in Genesis chapter 6. And we're going to read verses 5 through 8. Okay? So The earth is full of people who are sinners, just like you and me, and it's really bad enough where God is not pleased and wants to destroy the whole earth. So let's read and find out what's going on. So chapter 6, verse 5. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals, and creeping things, and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So we'll stop right there. So things aren't looking so good if you live on earth at this time. It seems like God's going to destroy the entire planet by water. And I wouldn't want to be there. And I'm so glad that I was not there at that time. And all y'all should be very thankful for that as well. But it's funny that God actually said he regretted making man. Now, that's a really big statement for God to say that he regretted making his own creation. But it was so bad and there was so much wickedness and so much evil that he wanted to blot them out. That's what it said in verse 7. Yeah, verse 7 says he's going to blot them out. He's going to just, you're gone. That's how it was going to go down. So there's a verse I want to show you guys before I talk about Jesus in this chapter. So we're going to jump over to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. This is a very commonly known New Testament verse, and I believe it's one of my favorites. Galatians is after Ephesians. Galatians, Ephesians. It's after Galatians. Have you guys been practicing, if you guys know your books of the Bible in order? I still really want to do that with you guys. We kind of got interrupted with coronavirus. Not okay. But that's all right. Okay, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. This is in the New Testament, okay? And there it is. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God. So this is where we start to see where Jesus is in the Old Testament in this story. Now this verse I just read, it's talking about after Jesus had already died and rose again. And it says, by grace we've been saved. It's like the only way that we have been saved from, well, let's back up. What are we being saved from? What did Jesus come to save us from? He came to save us from our sin and from life eternally separated from him, which is hell, which we don't want to go there. Not fun. We want to go to heaven. And so the only way that we've really been saved from that is because God had grace on us. And if we believe in Jesus, he will have that grace for us so that we can be saved. And this verse also says that it's not anything that we can do to save ourselves. It's only a gift from God that we're able to be saved from destruction and awful things in hell, and we can be with Jesus forever. Jesus hadn't come to earth yet when Noah was alive, but Noah is kind of reflecting Jesus in a sense. So Noah was found in favor with God. He was someone who God said was righteous on earth, and that nobody else on earth was at the time, just Noah. And Noah was being saved because of God's grace. So Noah was saved by this flood because he was walking with God and he was honoring God and loving and respecting God. So God took him and saved him from this, so that he didn't have to die in this flood. And the same thing happens with us when we believe in Jesus and we put our trust in God and in Jesus. Then Jesus saves us from destruction in hell. So there's kind of a little similarity there. Noah was saved by God because he believed in God and trusted him. He was saved from destruction of earth. And then there's us now, and if we put our faith in Jesus, who is God, if we put our faith in him, then we are saved after we die on this earth from the next life, which is either in heaven or hell. So that's the first little comparison of both of those stories. And we're going to keep going and see what else is there. Now we're going to move on to point number 2. And this is actually in a way where Noah is kind of like Jesus in this story. So I'm not going to read this whole part. I'm going to read a couple verses from, from chapter 6. I'm going to read one verse. From chapter 7, I'm going to read one verse. And in chapter 8, I'm going to read one verse. But I'll give you a little bit of a background of all of those chapters, because that's a lot to go through with just reading one verse in each chapter. So in the last part of chapter 6, God is telling Noah how to build the ark that he's been told to make. And in chapter 6, verse 22, it says, Noah did this. He did all that God commanded him. So then we go to chapter 7, and God is continuing to tell Noah how to build the ark. And he's also telling Noah that he wants Noah to bring his family, and he needs to bring 2 of every kind of animal on the whole earth. So probably not the animals in the ocean, just animals on land, and the bugs and the birds. There were probably dinosaurs back then. He probably had dinosaurs on his ark, which is so cool to think about. But God is telling Noah how to do this, and then I'm going to read verse 5 of chapter 7. It says, and Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. And then last chapter, chapter 8, we're going to skip ahead a little bit. The flood happened, the waters were going down, and Noah was waiting to go outside again. And at one point, God told Noah that he could go outside with his family and with all the animals. And then in chapter 8, verse 18, it says, so Noah went out, and his sons and his wives and his sons' wives with him. And then verse 19, every beast, every creeping thing, every bird, everything that moves on the earth went out by families from the ark. So what's the one main thing that's in common with all these verses? What do you guys think? I'll give you 2 seconds to think about it. 1, 2. Okay, it's my turn. If you guys were here, I'd give you more than 2 seconds, but you're not here. So those verses, I'll read them all just next to each other again, and maybe you guys can get what's in common with these verses. So the first verse was, Noah did this. He did all that God commanded him. The second verse was, and Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. And the third verse was, so Noah went out. And then a couple other words after that. But the main thing about those verses is that it's showing that Noah was obedient to God. That is a huge, very important quality to have, because Jesus is our example of ultimate obedience. I don't know about you guys, but I do know, because you're sinners, and so am I, that we're all disobedient at some point, whether it's to our parents or if you have a job, to your boss. Sometimes I'm disobedient. Not good. Or we're disobedient to maybe God himself, like maybe God has told you to do something, or maybe the Holy Spirit has convicted you to do something good instead of something bad, but you choose the bad thing. So we're all guilty of being disobedient. And Noah does an amazing job in this story. Like, can you imagine if God came to you, or anybody came to you and said, there's going to be a flood that's going to cover the whole earth. I need you to build an ark and go get 2 animals of every single kind and put it on the ark. I don't know about you, but I would start questioning what's going on. I'd be like, what flood? What's going to happen? How do you want me to do this? Why? What is this? I would start questioning things, and I'd be worried and scared and confused and all these weird emotions. And Noah doesn't show any of that in this story. He's just like, okay, I'll go do it. That is true obedience, completely trusting in God, that God has a plan and it's better than what your plan is. Kind of like what we were learning in Job. Job was learning that God always has a better plan than what you think is the plan. And Noah didn't even question God about anything. And I wanted to read you guys a verse in Luke, or I think it's a couple verses in Luke, and it's going to show how Jesus is also so obedient, and it is a perfectly obedient. Now, Noah is obedient, but he's still human, so we know he's not perfect. But Jesus was perfect, and is perfect. He's still alive. And we're going to show you guys that in the book of Luke. Now, hopefully this verse sounds familiar to you guys. I discussed it with you a little while ago, so maybe it's a good memory refresher. But in this part of Luke, we're in chapter 22, if you want to turn there. But Jesus is just about to be killed on the cross. He's just about to die, and he's praying to the Heavenly Father, and we're going to see what he says here and how he's really obedient. So it's Luke 22, verse 42. There's lots of verses to look at. I get lost sometimes. So verse 42, this is Jesus talking. I'll start in verse 41. So Jesus withdrew from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. So this is what Jesus praying to God, and he's all by himself, and he's just praying, just him and the Father, and he is saying, God, I just ask of you if there's another way that these people can be saved and not having me die on the cross. If there's another way, he's asking God, like, please let this happen. But not my plans, not my will, but yours be done. God the Father, your will and your plans be done. So Jesus is probably not too thrilled that he's going to be killed on the cross. He's going to be murdered on the cross. And he's hoping for another way, of course, to be able to save the whole world, so that we can all go to heaven. But he understands that if it's the only way, then God's way is best. And God's way is this way, and he is obedient even to death. He went to the cross willingly. He didn't resist. He didn't try to run away. He just said, not my will, not my plan, but your will be done. And that is true ultimate obedience. If someone told you that you had to die just to save a bunch of people, would you do it? You know, and it's kind of a hard question, especially when you're so young, because like when we're all kids, it's like I don't think about dying. I don't either. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you guys, but I don't think about it much either. But imagine if someone asked you to do that, and that would be really, really difficult. And Jesus is so obedient in this, and it really shows Noah being obedient too. Now, Noah obviously didn't have to die, but if he wasn't obedient, he would have died. That wouldn't have been good either, because you and I wouldn't exist, because we all come from Noah. That's kind of how I put it. But yeah, it's a very good story of showing how Noah is just like Jesus in a sense, because of his obedience. And I really hope that you guys are always trying to practice obedience, because it is such a great tool to have when you're growing up. It's really hard to be obedient all the time, especially when you're still like growing up and still learning and you don't know what's right from wrong, because we all kind of know a little bit of what's right and a little bit of what's wrong just inside of our brains, because God puts it in our brains when we're born. But we still have to learn, like, that's probably not a good decision. That's probably a good decision. So this is a really good example of Jesus in the Old Testament through Noah. Now, when I was studying this, I had an interesting thought. So in the verse in Luke that we read about Jesus, and he's asking God the Father if there's another way, instead of me dying on the cross, if that could happen, that'd be great. And obviously that didn't happen, but I was wondering, Noah, he's in a little bit of a different position than Jesus was. He wasn't having to die on the cross. but he's having to undertake this really big task of building this giant boat. And it took a long time to build the boat, like a long time. And I was wondering, do you think Noah ever questioned in his mind or out loud, but it's not recorded in the Bible, but did he ever think, is there another way that we could do this instead of me building a boat for like 150 years? I think it took that long. I'll look up the number again and I'll put it right here of how many years it took Noah to build the boat. But I've always wondered, like, I wonder if Noah ever hoped that there was another way to do this. Or maybe he just was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'll do it. It's just something interesting to think about. Maybe you can discuss it with your parents. Like, do you think Noah ever thought that maybe there'd be a better way, or maybe not a better way, but ever just thought, is this really the way to do it? Obviously it was, because it worked. It saved Noah. Do you guys ever laugh at your own jokes? I always film these by myself, and I always laugh at myself. I think I'm funny, I guess, but I hope you guys think I'm funny, because otherwise I'm just laughing all by myself, and that would be sad. All right, enough of me giggling to myself. We must get down to important business, which is the third point that I have of how the story of Noah is including Jesus in it. So this part, I'm going to skip around a little bit. We're going to go back to when God is telling Noah what's going to happen, which is the flood's going to come and you're going to build an ark. So he tells Noah that he's going to build this ark, and then he says, I will destroy everything on this earth. But in chapter 6, verse 18, it says, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. So this is interesting here. Everything's interesting to me. So Noah was told by God that no one was righteous on the earth, no one at all, but that God had found favor with Noah and that he was a righteous man. Now, it says that God was going to have Noah's family come with him on the ark. His wife and his 3 sons and their wives were going to come onto the ark, but they didn't go because they were righteous. God only said that Noah was righteous. He said everyone else on this earth was not righteous, was not good, was evil and wicked. And it's interesting because we are not righteous people, but we know Jesus. And because we know Jesus, we get to go to heaven. So I'll say that again so maybe it makes a little more sense. Noah was able to be saved because he was righteous. And his family was able to be saved because they knew Noah. Not because they were righteous. God said everybody was right, or everybody was unrighteous on earth except for Noah. So because they had a family connection to Noah, they were able to be saved. And Noah is, in a sense, like Jesus in this story, because Jesus is the only righteous person, the only perfect person ever on earth. And we know Jesus. We know him, and he is in our hearts. And because we have that connection with him, we are able to be saved from our destruction in hell and go to heaven instead. That is a really, really important point here, because nobody is righteous on earth. And like I said earlier, Noah was still a human being. He wasn't God, and he was still not a perfect person. But out of the whole earth at that time, God had grace on Noah and deemed him a righteous man. So, not to be confused, Noah is not equal to Jesus, but he's showing these characteristics that are very much like Jesus and how Jesus is for us. So I'm going to read a verse in Romans that will clarify this up a little bit. So I told you, we're hopping around a lot. But we're going to be in Romans chapter 3, verse 20... Just kidding. Verse 10. Thought it was 20. It's 10. Romans chapter 3, verse 10. As it is written, none is righteous, no, not one. No one understands, no one seeks for God. It's kind of a downer verse, if I'm going to be honest. Like, nobody is good. That's what it says, basically. Nobody on earth is good. But only Jesus is good. He is the only perfect person to walk on this earth. And because of him, we have safe access to heaven, and we do not have to be separated from God eternally. So that's probably one of my favorite points in this whole story, is that Noah is like Jesus because he had connection with his family and they were able to be saved. And Jesus is righteous and he knows us and we know him, and that way we're able to be saved. We have a family connection with Jesus, which is a beautiful thing, and I hope that you guys understand that. And if you don't yet, I hope you do understand it one day. It is so good to have Jesus in your life and know that you can be saved from everything bad coming, because there's lots of bad coming, but we'll get to Revelation in the future. If you haven't read the book of Revelations, it's a crazy book. This is going to be my last point. I believe that's point number 4. I lost count. I always have lots of points in my in my studies. So point number 4, we're going to still talk about Noah's family. So kind of like what we just talked about, Noah was like Jesus and he saved his family. Now, obviously, God is the one that saved their whole family, Noah and his family and all those animals on the ark. But Noah is like Jesus in that because of his connection to his family was saved. And after they were saved, what were they saved from? They were saved from destruction of the whole earth. So Noah saved family, covered them from destruction of the whole earth. Now, this has not happened yet, but this is where it's like the story of noses. Not noses. I was saying Moses and Noah at the same time. Noses. Noah. So Jesus, when he comes back, because remember, Jesus was born, and then he died, and then he rose again, and now he's in heaven, and we are waiting for him to come back and take us all into heaven, and then the earth's going to be destroyed. If you didn't know that, sorry to blow your mind, but that's what's going to happen in a nutshell. So we're waiting for Jesus to come back. We're often praying that, Jesus, we want you to come back. I pray that you would come back soon. Sometimes you'll hear adults praying for that. And that's because we really want him to come back, because we live in a world that's broken. So when Jesus comes back, what will happen after that? Well, all of his followers are going to go to heaven with him, but everybody who is not following Jesus is going to experience a lot of bad things and destruction and riots and fire and sadness and everything bad they're going to experience. And everyone is going to go to hell eventually, which is just, it's so sad. That's why we have to tell people about Jesus, guys, because if they don't know who Jesus is, then they won't have a chance to be saved. And everybody needs a chance to be saved, because, oh my goodness, I don't want anybody to go there. Even your worst enemy, you don't want them to go to hell. But it will happen. There is going to be a hell. There is going to be a lot of destruction and a lot of awful things that are going to happen. But first, Jesus will save everybody who he is followed by. And this is where it's similar to Noah. I'll make the final connection. Noah saved his family, and destruction of the earth followed. Jesus will save his family, which is all of us followers, and the destruction of the earth will follow. So that's destruction after saving. That's kind of the fourth point that I have for you guys. It's cool because it hasn't happened yet, the last part of it. We're still waiting for Jesus to come. But because we know that the Bible's true, the Bible says that this will happen, that there will be destruction and the earth will be destroyed, we have to believe it, right? I mean, I believe it for sure. I hope you guys believe it too. So a quick review, that's a lot of information. I know that's so much studying. Whenever I study the Bible, I write down so much, and I hope that you guys just absorbed it all into your sponge-like brains. I hope it's a sponge-like brain. But I'll go over. So our first point, I have my notebook. See all my notes? I got my notebook. So the first point we went over was that Noah was saved by God because of his grace. And we are saved because of Jesus and because of our faith in him. So that's the first point that we went over. The second point is that Noah was obedient when God told him to do something. Every single time he did in the story, he was obedient. And Jesus is also obedient, and he's perfectly obedient, even when it meant that he had to die on the cross. So obedience is the second point. The third point is that Noah's family was not righteous, but because they knew Noah, they were able to be saved by the flood that was coming. And we are able to be saved because we know Jesus, and he is our family, and we love him, and he will then save us from hell. Now, the fourth and final point, so I did count correctly earlier. There's 4 points. The fourth point was that Noah, in a sense, saved his family, and then the earth was destroyed. And Jesus will come back, and he will save all of us, and then the earth will be destroyed again, and there will be destruction. There will be a new earth. There's going to be a new earth and a new heaven, but we'll talk about that another time because that's a long story. But there will be destruction after that. So there's 4 really good points to show how Jesus is in the Old Testament. It's kind of like a reflection of Jesus. Jesus, the human part of Jesus, did not exist yet during Noah's time, but Jesus did exist because he's God, and God's always existed. So it just showed the reflection of something that was going to come later. And some of it hasn't even happened yet, which is very exciting. So I wanted to talk about our memory verse, which is going to be the verse, I think it's the first verse I read, which was Ephesians, but we're going to add on verse 9 of chapter 2. So chapter 2, verses 8 and 9 is what our memory verse is. So I'll read it to you guys really quickly, and then I'll just talk about it for 1 more minute, and then we'll be done. Promise. So Ephesians 2, 8 through 9. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast. Now this is one of my favorite verses. We cannot save ourselves by anything that we do. If I go do a bunch of good things and I always do what I'm told and I do this and that and it's all good, it's not going to be ever enough for me to save myself from dying and then destruction afterwards. But Jesus, because of his love and his grace on us, we can be saved. So that's going to be it for today. Until I edit this video, I won't know how long it is, but I hope it's not overwhelmingly long because I'd like to talk a lot. But I love you guys a whole lot, and I miss you a bunch. I only got to see a few of you last week. Let's see. I saw Kelly and Jaylyn, and I saw Eva and Isaac, and Cece and Joshua. I think that's it. Did I see any? I think that was it. So shout out to you guys, and I miss everybody else I didn't get to see, but I hope that you'll be able to come back soon, if that's this week, or well, if that's today or next week or whenever. But hopefully we can all get together soon. It's just so weird right now, guys. Please be praying for our country because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of bad things going on right now, and we just need to be praying for our whole country, like everything. So be praying. And I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your Sunday and a wonderful week. And I love you guys, and I'll see you soon. So